All right, well, we just got done taking that after 15-second shutters. Let's go ahead and turn her on and, oh, look at that, an airplane right there. The first shot of 2021 for the Milky Way captures an airplane. That's just my luck. What's up, YouTube? Benjamin Huseman Travel Photos on the web at www.benjistravelphotos.com. Same with Facebook and also same with Instagram, all Benji's Travel Photos. We are here once again at the Claud Post Office. Now, this is a pretty cool spot that I've been to a couple times before. I've shot the Milky Way here before. I've shot star trails here before. Most recently shot back towards the west and got Orion over the post office here with a little bit of lighting and took multiple frames to make that photo. But out here tonight, because it is a beautifully clear night, perfect for star trails, and then for about 1 hour between 1:30 a.m. and 2:30 a.m. we are going to see the core of the Milky Way rise up over the horizon before the moon comes up. And because of that, we've come out here in order to photograph the Claud Post Office again. Now, what is really cool about this post office is there's not a lot of history about it. There's only one little blurb I've been able to find in a book that talks about the history of the Claud Post Office. It's located on Bijou Creek, and that is a huge creek that runs through Colorado. It's dry most of the time, but whenever there's rains and snow melt and everything, you get a little bit of water in it, but for the most part, it's dry. And this post office actually had mail delivered tri-weekly. And the logs and the construction of it are just amazing. They were hand-hewn logs that went into building this. And there's a little outbuilding out there that's also fallen down. It had the same hand-hewn logs. There was an upstairs to this post office. The stairs inside are completely destroyed. There was a fireplace with a chimney in there, and the chimney has fallen down. There's a brick sitting up on top of the roof that came from the chimney. It's just a cool old building. And, you know, when I look at the condition of it, this is another one I wonder how much longer it's going to be here. So I love coming out here and photographing it, especially getting some unique shots. I came out here last year during the supermoon. We had that pink supermoon, came out here and photographed that. It was just a great photo. I'm really glad how that one turned out. And like I said, I've done the Milky Way here before. I did a nice panel of the arch over the building, and I've done star trails here. And that's what the goal tonight is. So right now I've got my camera set up facing the building. I've got my 12 to 24 millimeter lens on there. It's an f4. We'll talk about that in a second. I've got it all the way out at 12 millimeters, and the goal is to be able to just capture stars circling in the sky. And that's the primary goal. Then once I'm done shooting star trails, we're going to put on one of my astrophotography lenses. We're going to turn directions, and we're actually going to shoot towards the post office here and get that Milky Way rising up over the eastern horizon. And again, that's going to be about 1:30 in the morning. So I'm going to have about 4 hours, maybe a little bit more, 4.5, maybe push it to 5 hours of being able to capture those star trails and get that circling motion that you see from all the stars, basically, what looks like they're spinning, but actually the Earth is spinning. And then going to go for that Milky Way shot. At the same time, I'm also going to set up my second body. Right now, I've got my A7R4 set up here, ready to shoot these star trails. I'm going to set the A7R3 up. I'm going to get it pointed one direction, and I'm going to try to get a nice time lapse. And so I'm going to let that fire off photos just consecutively, and then put all those photos together into a short little video to make a time lapse. And hopefully I can get a time lapse of the Milky Way coming up over the horizon and just see all the stars just moving through the sky. I'm hoping it turns out. I've never done one before, so this is going to be a trial for that, all at the same time. So action-packed night of photography tonight. Star trails, Milky Way time lapse, you name it, plus a little bit of video. Let's see how all this turns out. So I talked about using my 12 to 24 millimeter lens in the f4. Now, normally astrophotography, you want to capture as fast of a photo as you can in order to prevent seeing those star movements. I'm going for the opposite effect here. I'm actually going for star movement. Because of that, I'm actually going to move my aperture up, probably into the f8, maybe even f11 range. So it's okay that I'm not using one of my faster lenses. What I'm going for is probably a 2-minute exposure, and so I'm going to try to set every setting between the ISO, the aperture, and the shutter speed to get that 2-minute exposure. By doing that, I'll actually start getting motion of the stars in the frame. A lot of people talk about the rule of 500, and they say take your focal length and divide that into 500, and that is the maximum shutter speed you theoretically can have in order to prevent star movement. With 12 millimeters, I'd be around 40, 42 seconds, 45 seconds that I can actually run a shutter speed and not get movement. By going 2 minutes, I'll get a little bit of movement. I'm not going to see as much movement as if I'd have brought my 85 millimeter lens and really allowed it to just show just a ton of movement going. So it's a little bit of a challenge going extremely wide angle with 12 millimeter. However, I've done that because I really want to capture as much of the sky as possible. So the settings that I'm shooting for are going to be ISO 100 because I want a clean image and I don't need a fast shutter speed. Shutter speed of 2 minutes, and then whatever aperture is going to line up with that. F8, F11, we'll see whenever it actually gets just a little bit darker and the stars start to come out. One thing I'm looking for right now is Polaris. I want to make sure that Polaris is prominently in the picture so that all those stars look like they're spinning around Polaris. At the same time, I'm also worried about my foreground element, which is the old Claud post office. Right now, if you look at my composition, I've actually got this set up so that the rule of thirds lines up right on the point of the post office here. I think that's a nice composition, especially whenever I balance that out with a lot of the star trails there. Now, one thing, my camera is pretty close to level. I haven't kicked it up into the sky a lot, and I've done that because I don't want to see keystoning on the building. I don't want those walls to look like they're falling inward. But at the same time, although I can correct that in post, when I do that, it tends to stretch the sky, and I don't want my star trails, which I'm trying to get a nice circle, to be stretched into an oblong. I've taken a photo before where I kicked it up and allowed that to happen and then corrected for keystone, stretched those star trails, and wasn't really happy with the results. So I'm trying to stay as level as possible. You notice in doing that though, I have a lot of foreground. That's one of the things I will probably crop out. We'll see how it turns out whenever I actually get the photos stacked together and see how it looks, whether or not you need to crop that foreground and maybe go with a little bit wider, maybe 16:9 crop could potentially work very well here. So not kicking it up, slower shutter speed, low ISO so there's minimal noise, and then we're just going to let them just fire off photos for about 4 to 5 hours. To do that, I'm going to hook up an external battery pack and let that external battery pack actually power the camera while it's taking these photos. That way, when it gets ready to shoot the Milky Way, I have plenty of battery power left in the camera in order to take those shots. Well, the camera's been running about 4 hours, and I think I've got some decent frames to build a star trail photo on. And we're going to go ahead and turn this on. You can see the frames as they go along. And as I rotate through the different images here, you can see the movement of the stars. And that movement of the stars, whenever I start to stack those photos together, is actually what's going to create that big star trail photo. So I'm pretty happy with this. It's about 25 minutes or so before the Milky Way is supposed to come up. I'm going to go ahead and take the camera gear down, swap the lens out, put my good astrophotography lens on, and probably turn the car on and get a little bit of heat going, try to warm up my toes a little bit. You can see I'm shivering out here. It's a little bit chilly here, which you can come to expect, you know, April in the eastern plains of Colorado at night. You can kind of expect it's going to be a little cold, and it certainly is. So gonna warm up a little bit and then come back out and shoot some Milky Way photos, and hopefully I can get the shot that I'm looking for with that. Hopefully I'd love to get another nice pano out here of the arch of the Milky Way over this beautiful old worn down post office, and we'll see what we can do. So time to go warm up. Well, the time has come to take my first Milky Way shot of 2021, and pretty excited for this. Been waiting for about 6 months now to come out and be able to take shots of the Milky Way, and so very happy to be out here. I've got my settings right now at ISO 1600, my shutter speed down to 15 seconds, and you see I've got my lens opened up all the way to f1.4. That's why I use this lens, because it's very fast, allows a lot of light in really fast. Whereas before I was trying to go with the slower shutter speed and show the motion of those stars. Now I'm actually trying to freeze them in place. So I don't want to go over 15 seconds on my shutter speed. If I go up to 20 seconds, although that's less than the rule of 500, I can see a little bit of movement in the stars, and that's not what I want. So 15 seconds is the most shutter speed that I'll run with this lens at 24 millimeter, f1.4, and ISO 1600 is going to give me the results that I want. So let's go ahead and fire off this photo and see how she turns out. All right, well, we just got done taking that after 15-second shutters. Let's go ahead and turn her on, and oh, look at that, an airplane right there. The first shot of 2021 for the Milky Way captures an airplane. That's just my luck. The good news is you can see the core of the Milky Way. It has come up over the horizon and come up high enough that you can see it just off to the right side of the post office there. I'm going to go ahead and fire off another frame here, and hopefully that airplane's out of frame now so we can get a shot without that. Once I've got this dialed and I think the Milky Way is really where I want it to, then I'm going to go ahead and stand the camera up into portrait orientation and start swinging through to get that pano and really try to capture the nice arc of the Milky Way around this post office. After 15 seconds on that shot, let's go ahead and try it out. And the airplane still in frame. That has got to be one of the slowest moving airplanes ever. But we'll go ahead and give it another whirl and see if maybe he's out of frame yet. I've actually moved my camera and I have a new composition. I'm actually trying a couple different things. As you can see on my screen, I've actually got my ISO all the way up to 6400. Now, I've never taken astrophotography at ISO 6400 before, but I was talking to Jason about a program called Sequitur, and he was saying that I can stack multiple frames together in order to reduce noise. So I've tried a couple different settings with this new composition, and you can see I've got the post office is just off to the right. You can see the core of the Milky Way just to the left of the post office there, and then it just kind of shoots up diagonally up out of the frame, and I really like this composition. What I've done is I've taken about 10 shots with this setting the way that it is, and again, that's ISO 6400. I've actually brought my shutter speed down to 8 seconds, and it's giving me sharper stars. I'm not seeing any movement whenever I zoom in on that. So as I rotate through here, you can see slight movement of the stars as I'm rotating along, and then you can see I have another one where I was shooting at ISO 3200 in 10-second exposure. So I'm out here trying different settings, and I talked about this in the last video I uploaded about take multiple settings and multiple exposures, because that way you have stuff to play with whenever you get home and you start looking on the computer and start doing your post-processing. If I took all my shots out here with the same exact exposure and got home and realized that's not the exposure I wanted, then it would have been a wasted night. So I'm just kind of playing right now, and again, I've got some at 3200, I've got others that are down to 1600, and again, I like this composition. I'm going to try out the software when I get home and download it and see if I can manage to get this high ISO shot to be not as noisy and take that out of it. You know, another way that you can do it is you can set your star tracker up and you can just expose for a low ISO, longer period of time, and let the camera rotate with the earth there in order to get a low ISO shot and not a lot of noise. But I don't have my star tracker with me this evening, so I'm just going to try this out. I'm looking at the composition I have. I'm really happy with this composition. I'm actually not going to play with the pano later. I think I'm just going to continue playing with my exposure settings here and just really kind of get it dialed in, and then go home and really play with it on the computer and post and see if I can't get the results I'm looking for even at high ISO. It'll be interesting to see what the results are. Hopefully I got the shot I came out here for this evening. I actually started playing with the settings on the camera even more and pushed the ISO to 8,000 and then all the way up to 12,800. And so I'm going to try that Sequitur program out and see if it produces results that I'm hopeful for, and see, kind of do a comparison between ISO 12,800, 800, 6,400, 3,200, and really get a feel for what produces the best results out of my camera. So it's almost time for the moon to come up, which which is gonna wash out the Milky Way and make it so it's really not visible. So I'm gonna go ahead and start breaking down camera equipment and start packing it away, and then begin the journey home and crawl into a nice warm bed. It's been a pleasure again having you with me while I shoot this video. I hope you've enjoyed it. If so, please don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't done so, and ring that bell so you're notified whenever I upload the next video. Got a great trip coming up this week. I think it's going to produce some beautiful images and make for a good video, so you definitely want to ring that bell and get notified and be subscribed so that you know whenever that video gets uploaded and you're able to watch it. Until then, happy shooting.